What if the most powerful natural antibiotic ever identified by modern science was not locked in a pharmaceutical vault or hidden behind a prescription? What if it was sitting in a bowl on your kitchen counter right now, the same place it has been sitting for as long as you can remember, and you've been walking past it every single day without knowing what it actually is? There is a plant mentioned in the Bible that has now been tested against antibiotic-resistant bacteria in clinical research and demonstrated a kill rate that stunned the scientists conducting the study. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly what it is, how it works at the molecular level, and why the ancient world valued it so highly that grown adults wept when they could not have it. The plant is garlic, Allium sativum. That pungent white bulb you use for pasta and stir-fry and roasted vegetables without a second thought. And I know what you're thinking. Garlic. Everyone knows garlic is healthy. But here's what I need you to understand. What most people think they know about garlic is roughly 1% of what the clinical research actually shows. This is not a mild immune booster. This is not a folk remedy that makes you feel a little better when you have a cold. Garlic is one of the most extensively studied antimicrobial agents in the history of pharmacology, natural or synthetic. And the story of how it went from the most important medicine in the ancient world to a pizza topping is one you need to hear. Open the book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 5. The Israelites have been delivered from slavery in Egypt. They are wandering in the wilderness, surviving on manna, and they reach a breaking point. They weep, and what do they cry out for? The fish, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. Read that again. These are people who were just freed from generational slavery, and they are mourning the absence of garlic so intensely that the text records their grief. If you do not understand why a freed slave population would weep over a bulb of garlic, it is because you do not yet understand what garlic actually does to the human body. But the ancient world understood it completely. The Egyptians did not just eat garlic, they built their civilization on it. The Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical documents ever discovered, dating back roughly 3,500 years, lists garlic in 22 separate medical preparations. 22! Not as a flavoring, as a treatment for infections, parasites, circulatory problems, and respiratory illness. And here's a detail that should stop you cold. The laborers who built the Great Pyramids were partially paid in garlic and onions. Not given them as a side dish, paid in them as wages. When the most ambitious construction project in human history compensates its workforce with a food, that food is not optional nutrition, it is survival infrastructure. Greek physicians prescribed it. Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, used garlic for pulmonary infections and abdominal conditions. Roman soldiers consumed it before battle for strength and infection resistance. Greek Olympic athletes ate it before competition as a performance enhancer. Chinese medicine has used it for thousands of years for respiratory infections and digestive disorders. Ayurvedic tradition prescribed it across the Indian subcontinent. Every major ancient medical tradition on Earth, with no contact between them, independently arrived at the same conclusion: garlic is primary medicine. But here's where the ancient record meets modern science in a way that should fundamentally change how you think about what is sitting in your kitchen. In 1858, Louis Pasteur, one of the founders of microbiology, formally documented the antibacterial properties of garlic in laboratory conditions. During the First World War, when medical supplies ran dangerously low, British military physicians used garlic juice as an antiseptic on battlefield wounds. During the Second World War, the Soviet Army relied on it so heavily for treating infected soldiers that it earned a name that persists to this day: Russian penicillin. That was not a joke. That was battlefield medicine saving lives when synthetic antibiotics were unavailable.
Now here is what modern pharmacology has discovered about why all of this works. When you crush or chop a garlic clove, an enzyme called alliinase is triggered. It converts a stable compound called alline into allicin. And allicin is where the chemistry becomes extraordinary. Allicin has demonstrated antimicrobial activity against one of the broadest spectrums of pathogens ever documented in a natural compound: bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. It does not target one type of microorganism. It disrupts multiple microbial pathways simultaneously. And here is the finding that made headlines in the scientific community. Allicin has shown activity against methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, MRSA, the antibiotic-resistant superbug that defeats most pharmaceutical antibiotics and kills tens of thousands of people every year in hospitals around the world. A compound from a kitchen bulb showing measurable activity against a pathogen that resists the strongest synthetic drugs modern medicine has produced. That is the kind of antimicrobial profile that researchers take very seriously. But garlic does not stop at infection. Meta-analyses pooling data from multiple randomized controlled trials have confirmed that garlic supplementation produces statistically significant reductions in blood pressure in people with hypertension. Studies show meaningful reductions in LDL cholesterol. Research has demonstrated improvements in arterial stiffness and endothelial function, which is the ability of your blood vessels to expand and contract properly. A landmark randomized controlled trial found that people taking a daily garlic supplement experienced significantly fewer colds over the winter months and recovered faster when they did get sick compared to the placebo group. And population studies across multiple large cohorts have consistently found that high dietary garlic consumption is associated with reduced rates of gastrointestinal cancers. The signal is consistent enough across independent populations that cancer researchers now consider it a meaningful area of ongoing investigation. Here is the single most important practical detail about garlic that almost nobody knows. Heat destroys allicin. The moment you throw crushed garlic into a hot pan, the compound that drives most of its medicinal power begins to degrade. Raw, freshly crushed garlic is dramatically more potent than cooked garlic, but there is a technique that changes everything. If you crush or chop your garlic and let it sit for 10 minutes before cooking, the enzymatic reaction that produces allicin completes fully, and a significant portion of the active compounds survives moderate heat. The ancient world ate garlic both ways, raw in condiments and dressings and cooked in stews and preparations, but the raw preparation was always the medicinal one. 10 minutes. That is all it takes to unlock what the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Chinese, the Indians, and the Israelites already knew. Every civilization that has ever dominated the ancient world arrived independently at the same plant. They fed it to their soldiers, paid their laborers with it, prescribed it through their physicians, and wept when they could not have it. And modern science, with all of its randomized trials and molecular analysis and billion-dollar research infrastructure, keeps arriving at the same place those civilizations reached thousands of years ago. The most powerful antimicrobial in your house costs almost nothing. It has been sitting on your kitchen counter this entire time, and it has a body of clinical evidence behind it that most pharmaceutical drugs cannot match. If this changed how you look at what is already in your kitchen, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. Every week on this channel, we go deep into one biblical medicine that modern science is finally catching up to. Drop a comment and tell me, did you know garlic pre-do all of this, or is this the first time you are hearing the full picture? I read every single one. The next video goes even deeper into a biblical remedy that is making researchers rethink everything. You do not want to miss it.